Writing. Everyone thought Sophia Miller had no pride left. At 27, she worked as a maid inside the luxurious mansion of one of the most feared men in the city. People barely noticed her. The servants mocked her old clothes. Guests treated her like furniture. Even the house manager constantly humiliated her and reminded everyone that Sophia came from a poor family and had no future. But no one knew how much pain she carried inside. Her father had died years earlier, leaving behind debts. Her mother was sick and needed expensive medicine. Sophia worked quietly and never complained. She smiled even when people hurt her feelings. Deep inside, she still believed that kindness mattered. The owner of the mansion was Lorenzo De Luca, a powerful mafia boss whose name made politicians nervous and criminals obedient. He had built an empire that nobody dared challenge. Wealth, power, and fear surrounded him every day. Yet Lorenzo trusted very few people. He had recently become engaged to Isabella Romano, a beautiful woman from an influential family. Isabella loved luxury and attention. She often spoke about becoming Mrs. De Luca in front of reporters and socialites. Everyone admired her beauty, but Lorenzo noticed something strange. Whenever he spoke about charity or helping ordinary people, Isabella became bored. Whenever expensive gifts arrived, she became excited again. Slowly, doubts started growing inside him. He wanted to know whether she truly loved him or only loved his power. One evening Lorenzo secretly gathered his most trusted men and a famous doctor. Together they created a dangerous plan. News spread that Lorenzo had suffered a terrible accident and fallen into a coma. Doctors announced that nobody knew when he would wake up. The entire city was shocked. Newspapers covered the story. Powerful people sent flowers. Isabella cried in front of cameras and promised to stay by his side forever. But inside the mansion, reality slowly began revealing itself. During the first week Isabella visited every day. During the second week she started arriving later. By the third week she spent more time on the phone than beside Lorenzo's bed. Soon she stopped pretending completely. She shouted at the nurses and complained about how difficult her life had become. She secretly met lawyers to discuss Lorenzo's fortune. One night Sophia entered the room to change the flowers and heard Isabella laughing on the phone. She was telling another man that Lorenzo would never wake up and that soon everything would belong to her. Sophia froze. Her heart broke. She wanted to believe nobody could be so cruel. But she remained silent because she knew nobody would believe a maid. Every evening after finishing her work, Sophia quietly entered Lorenzo's room. She cleaned his forehead, adjusted his blanket and spoke to him softly. She told him stories about her mother and about her dreams. She knew he could not answer, but somehow speaking to him brought peace to her lonely heart. Sometimes she even apologized for bothering him. One rainy night Lorenzo secretly listened as Sophia cried beside his bed. She thought nobody could hear her. She whispered that she was tired. She admitted she was afraid because her mother's treatment was becoming impossible to afford. Yet she smiled through her tears and promised she would never give up. Lorenzo felt something inside him change. Everyone around him wanted his money. But the quiet maid asked for nothing. Days became weeks. Isabella became colder. She organized expensive parties while Lorenzo remained in bed. She openly insulted the staff and treated everyone like servants. The house manager obeyed her because he hoped for rewards. Sophia became their favorite target. Isabella called her useless and accused her of stealing jewelry that had actually been misplaced. The manager slapped Sophia in front of everyone and fired her immediately. Nobody defended her. Humiliated and heartbroken, Sophia packed her things. Before leaving forever, she entered Lorenzo's room one final time. Tears filled her eyes. She gently held his hand and thanked him for unknowingly giving her a job that helped her mother survive. She wished him peace and quietly walked away. But before she reached the door, a voice behind her said, "Don't leave, Sophia." She froze. Her entire body trembled. Slowly she turned around. Lorenzo De Luca was sitting upright in bed, looking directly at her. She thought she was dreaming. Nurses rushed inside. Security guards stared in shock. Within minutes the entire mansion exploded with confusion. Isabella arrived screaming with fake tears. But this time Lorenzo looked at her with cold eyes. Calmly he stood up and asked everyone to gather in the main hall. Politicians, lawyers, managers and family members all came. Isabella smiled, believing everything would still go according to her plan. But Lorenzo surprised everyone. Giant screens turned on around the room. Recordings appeared one after another. Isabella insulting him while he was supposedly unconscious. Her secret meetings with another man. Her plans to take his fortune. Her cruel words toward the staff. The entire room fell silent. Isabella turned pale. She begged and cried, but Lorenzo's expression never changed. He ended the engagement in front of everyone. Then he exposed the house manager for stealing money and abusing employees. Police officers waiting outside entered immediately. For the first time in years, those arrogant people realized they were no longer untouchable. Everyone expected Lorenzo to celebrate. But instead he quietly asked one question. Where is Sofia? Nobody knew. She had already left. Lorenzo personally searched for her. Days passed. He visited hospitals, pharmacies and small apartments. Finally he found her sitting beside her sick mother in a public clinic. Sofia nearly fainted when she saw him. She immediately apologized for leaving. Lorenzo smiled gently and thanked her instead. He paid for her mother's treatment without hesitation. But Sofia refused expensive gifts. She said she only wanted her mother to recover. Her answer made Lorenzo smile again. Quietly, hope entered both their hearts. Months passed slowly. Sofia's mother became healthier. Lorenzo often visited with simple flowers. They shared tea and spoke about ordinary things. Sofia still felt insecure because of their different worlds. She believed someone as powerful as Lorenzo could never truly love a poor maid. So she stayed patient and focused on caring for her mother. Lorenzo respected her feelings. He never pressured her. He simply remained by her side. One day an old woman recognized Lorenzo in the clinic and thanked him for paying for surgeries of children she had never met. Sofia looked at him with surprise. Slowly she realized that beneath his feared reputation lived a lonely man who desperately wanted peace. Their friendship grew naturally. They laughed together. They visited parks and listened to music. For the first time in decades Lorenzo felt normal. But Isabella was not finished. Filled with hatred, she joined forces with corrupt businessmen who wanted revenge against Lorenzo. They spread lies online and accused Sofia of manipulating him for money. Reporters surrounded her. Strangers insulted her. Sofia cried alone at night, believing she had ruined Lorenzo's life. But Lorenzo remained calm. He asked her only one thing. Be patient. Truth always needs time. Weeks later investigators uncovered financial crimes committed by Isabella and her partners. Hidden documents appeared. Witnesses spoke out. News channels changed their headlines. The same people who insulted Sofia suddenly apologized. Isabella was arrested while the corrupt businessmen lost everything. Justice arrived quietly, just as Lorenzo had promised. One winter evening Lorenzo brought Sofia back to the mansion where she had once been humiliated. The servants gathered nervously. Instead of anger, Lorenzo announced that every employee would receive better salaries and protection from abuse. Then he turned towards Sofia. Tears filled her eyes as he thanked her in front of everyone. He said that while he pretended to sleep, she had awakened his soul. Everyone applauded. Sofia cried softly because nobody had ever defended her before. Snow fell gently outside. Lorenzo led her to the room where she had once changed flowers and whispered hopes to a man she believed would never hear her. He smiled and repeated every word she had spoken during those lonely nights. Sofia covered her mouth in shock. He had heard everything. Even her prayers. Even her fears. Even the promise she made to never give up. Lorenzo held her trembling hands and admitted that during his fake coma, one quiet maid had done the unthinkable. She had reminded the most feared Mafia boss that love, kindness and loyalty still existed. Then he knelt down and asked her to spend the rest of her life with him. Sofia burst into tears and nodded. Years later reporters often asked Lorenzo when he had truly fallen in love. They expected stories about beauty or romance. Instead he always smiled and answered the same way. He said he fell in love with the woman who thought he could not hear her, yet stayed beside him anyway, when everyone else had already abandoned him. And every time Sofia heard those words, she remembered the painful days when she felt invisible, because she knew that sometimes life rewards the quiet hearts that continue loving even when nobody is watching.